Hello, in this video I am going to discuss the structure of a basic C program. So I've got this image of the internet. It's a pretty good representation of the structure of a C program. I'll show some code that we've covered before in a second. But if you look at this, you have the header section at the top where you can do a bunch of things, but one of the main things you can do is include files. So if he has an angle bracket like this, that indicates that it's some sort of built-in file. If he has quotation marks, that's some sort of custom file, potentially a file you've created. So that's the main distinction between the two. And you can also do other stuff above it as well, like create certain global variables and other definitions. I'm gonna have videos covering all that little thing, but I just wanted to mention it now. And okay, so this is, well, the main part essentially of your application. It says main here. It doesn't really represent much, I think, for a newcomer. The way that I was always taught, and I always quite liked this for C and C++, was this is the main entry point to your application. For a C program, the bare minimum that you need is a main. Without a main, it won't run. You can think of it like the front door to your house. Without a front door, somebody cannot get in. You might think, okay, if they take, sledgehammer to the wall, they'll get in. But ignoring that, that's basically essentially hacking the application. Ignoring that, you need a door. And you only ever have one main. If you try and do two mains, for example, I'll demonstrate that in a second, it will give you an error. Okay, and then inside of it, so the way they've structured this is doing variable declaration, so declaring any sort of variables that you'll be using. Oh, just not my mouse. And in the body, whatever you're doing in the application, and then a return. And a return of 0 just indicates to the compiler that everything is all good. There's a better version of doing it, which is return exit_success. I'll cover that in separate videos, but that is an alternative way of doing it. And these curly braces just indicate the start and the end of a particular function, because these, parentheses indicate that it's a function. These curly braces indicate this is the start of the function, this is the end of the function. So all the code within it is related to this particular function. You can have more than one function. Each function needs to have a unique either name or some sort of structure in terms of like parameters, basically something to distinguish it so there's no conflicts. And like I said, you can't have multiple mains. I'll demonstrate that in a second. And this is indicating that you'll declare all your variables right at the top. There may be a need to declare them later on. That's fine. As soon as you hit return 0 in this application, the application will stop running. So generally, you do not want code after return 0. You don't want it at all. Okay, so now let me actually close that. So this is a Visual Studio Code, a basic application right here. And let me format it the way I like to have it formatted. And as you can see, it's very similar to that one. If I run it, it'll say hello world. And if I was to duplicate this, let's see what we get. So if I run it, it's very interesting. It's very interesting that Visual Studio has actually allowed this. So this is no, my bad. I haven't saved it. Run it, and here we go. I was gonna say we should get an error. Visual Studio should not be trying to handle this essentially. Okie dokie. So we've got an error, redefinition of main. Previous definition of main was here. So you're redefining it, even if the code inside is different. So if I was to remove that, for example, the code is now different. If I click run, you're still going to get a similar error. And that's really it, the basic structure of a C program. So any sort of files you're including, they will go at the top. Any other thing with a hash most likely will go at the top as well. Sometimes they go inside. Separate videos will cover that. And this is the main entry point, like the door to your application. You could have this as void as well. If this is void, then you do not need the return 0 statement. Let's see what actually happens in Visual Studio Code if we try and run it. So it will, see what it says. So it's given a warning. So it's saying it's gonna let us run it, but it's essentially saying that you don't need it. So we could get rid of that. I always prefer the int option, so you're indicating to the compiler what has happened, that it has returned true or false, in terms of it's ran correctly or not, and then the body of your application, the return statement, and the curly braces. That's really it. Obviously, the more features you learn, the more you can incorporate in this structure, but this is essentially the structure of a main basic C program. If you have any questions, feel free to pop me a message. There'll be a link in the description to the GitHub page. There'll be another link to the Discord group where there's over 3,700, almost 3,700 members, and with 200-300 members always active at any given time. Feel free to hit me or her up and we'll help you out. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.